Welcome to Decode Station. I'm Sarah. Today, we're going to a place that shouldn't exist, Camp Hero.
And when we say shouldn't exist, we're not just talking about some secret base that's off the books.
No.
We're talking about a place where the fundamental laws of reality, physics, time, consciousness, were allegedly just thrown out the window.
Exactly. The stack of sources we're looking at today, they read more like a script for a horror movie than like actual military records. But this is the story of the Montauk Project.
It's a fascinating and, frankly, disturbing rabbit hole.
Ugh.
On the surface, if you go there today, you just see a state park. It's at the very tip of Long Island.
It's beautiful, right?
It is, yeah. Scenic. There's a lighthouse. But then, right in the middle of it all, you have this massive hulking relic of the Cold War.
Radar did.
The radar dish, a giant steel behemoth. But the sources we're looking at suggest that what happened above ground was, just the tip of the iceberg.
The real story was happening underground.
In a massive complex, yes.
Yeah.
A complex beneath that park.
And the timeline here is really specific. We're looking at a window between, the late 1960s and 1983.
Right. That's the key period.
And the claims are just.
Yeah.
They're wild. We're talking mind control, kidnapping, even time travel. It really has the Stranger Things vibe, but this was decades before that show was even a thought.
It does, and that's a crucial point. A lot of people see the pop culture stuff and assume the stories come from that.
Right, that it's fiction inspiring the conspiracy.
But in this case, the lore of Montauk is the origin point. So the mission for this deep dive is to connect those dots. We need to figure out how a piece of military tech, a simple radar dish, allegedly became a machine that could manipulate time itself.
Okay, so let's start there. The most visible part of this whole thing, the SAGE radar.
The ANFPS-35.
Right. Even if you look up pictures of Camp Hero today, this thing just dominates the whole landscape. It looks like this giant, rusty metal sail. It's kind of threatening.
It is enormous. And officially, its purpose was surveillance. It was part of the SAGE defense system, basically a very advanced set of eyes watching the skies for Soviet bombers.
That's the official story.
That's the textbook definition. It was supposed to be a shield.
But our sources paint a totally different picture of what that dish was doing. They claim it wasn't a shield, it was a weapon.
And here's where it gets technical, but also really fascinating. The reports suggest the radar wasn't just receiving signals.
It was broadcasting them.
Yes, broadcasting. And we're not talking about weak radio waves or something standard. We are talking about gigawatt-level electromagnetic pulses.
Gigawatts! That is a staggering amount of power. I mean, that's the kind of energy you associate with a city's power grid, not a surveillance dish.
It's massive. And the obvious question is, why? Why do you need that much power just to see an airplane?
Right.
The allegations are that these pulses weren't looking for metal in the sky. They were being used to manipulate the minds of the local population.
Wait, you mean the town, the actual people living in Montauk?
Potentially, yes. Them and specific test subjects on the base itself. The whole theory hinges on frequency hopping and modulation.
Okay, break that down for us. How does a radar frequency turn into mind control?
Well, think about how our brains work. They run on electrical impulses, alpha waves, beta waves.
Right, brain waves.
Exactly. And they all oscillate at specific frequencies. The source material claims the scientists at Montauk figured out how to tune that massive radar output to mimic and then override our natural brain frequencies.
So it's like a jammer for your thoughts, or a remote control.
More like remote control. By modulating the pulse, changing the rhythm of the radar, they could allegedly entrain the brains of anyone in the beam's path. They could induce moods.
So if they wanted the town to feel angry,
they could blast a specific chaotic frequency. If they wanted everyone docile or sleepy, they'd shift to a slow, rhythmic pulse.
That is absolutely terrifying. The idea of a military base just silently changing the vibe of an entire town. You wake up feeling irritable and you think it's just you.
But it's actually a guy turning a dial 5 miles away. It's the ultimate intrusion. You wouldn't see it, you wouldn't hear it, but you would feel it.
And the sources say this was just the beginning.
It was a stepping stone. They were testing the waters, seeing if they could broadcast moods. But the real goal wasn't just making people cranky. It was about interfacing directly with the human mind.
Which brings us to the next phase. And this is where the story shifts from, mad science to something much, much darker. We have to talk about the Montauk Chair.
This is the centerpiece of the whole project. The diagrams in the source files, they make it look like a dentist's chair, but it's wrapped in these huge copper coils.
I got chills just reading the description. It's called a psychological interface device. And what does
Yeah.
that even mean? Is it reading minds?
Think of it more like a translator. But instead of translating, say, Spanish to English, it translates thought into energy. A sensitive individual, a psychic, would sit in the chair. It had all these sensors that would pick up the electromagnetic signature of their thoughts. And those sensors were hooked up to a Cray supercomputer, which was then linked to that huge radar dish.
So the person in the chair thinks of something.
The chair reads it, the computer digitizes it, and the radar amplifies it with gigawatts of power. But not like a speaker amplifies a voice. The claim is that the chair allowed the psychic to manifest their thoughts into physical reality.
Into physical reality, that's a huge leap. So if I'm in the chair and I visualize an apple.
The theory is that an apple would appear, or at least the illusion of an apple, so solid, so real, that it might as well be physical. They called it materialization.
That is mind-bending. But you said psychics. They couldn't just put anyone in this chair, could they? You or I couldn't just conjure up a car.
No. And this is the darkest part of the source material. They needed individuals with a very high psychic potential, what the sources call psi-ability. And they found them in a group they referred to as the Montauk Boys.
This part of the file was really hard to get through. This is where it stops being about cool tech and becomes something truly sinister.
It's tragic. The allegations are that these were young people, often runaways, sometimes kidnapped, brought to the base for one purpose: to be broken.
Broken? How?
Through trauma. The sources are explicit. They were subjected to intense physical and psychological trauma in order to unlock their psychic potential. The logic, if you can even call it that, is based on dissociation.
Dissociation, like when your mind detaches from reality to protect itself from something horrible?
Exactly. The theory was that under extreme stress, the barrier between the conscious and the subconscious just dissolves. A kind of primitive, unfiltered psychic energy is released, and they wanted to harness that energy.
So they were torturing these kids to turn them into living batteries for this machine.
In essence, yes. They were looking for the perfect interface, someone who could endure the chair, dissociate on command, and hold a visualization long enough for the tech to manifest it.
It's beyond unethical. It's monstrous. It sounds so much like the MK Ultra files, which we know are real. This feels like the next horrible logical step.
It aligns perfectly with that whole era of experimentation. The search for the psychic spy, the super soldier. But here, they weren't just trying to spy on people, they were trying to create things.
And speaking of monstrous, I need to clarify something. We're talking about manifesting objects, changing moods, but the line gets blurry. Are you telling me the government was actually trying to manifest monsters?
Well, trying might be a generous word. Risking it is probably more accurate. If the machine just manifests thought, and the subject in the chair has a mind filled with trauma and fear, what happens? The tech doesn't have a moral compass. It just processes the signal.
It's a Pandora's box. You open it, and whatever's inside that person's head comes out. If they're scared, the fear itself manifests.
Precisely. And that volatility is what leads to the project's downfall. But before we get to the end, we have to talk about the other thing the chair could do. Bending reality wasn't enough. They had to bend time.
The time tunnel.
The time tunnel.
Okay, this is where the theoretical physics gets really dense. I'm looking at a date in the file. August 12, 1983. The source says this specific date is critical. Why?
If you follow the lore, August 12th is the key to everything. The theory is that the Earth has these natural biorhythms, like peaks and valleys in its electromagnetic field.
Almost like a planetary heartbeat.
Exactly like that. And the claim is that every 20 years, on August 12th, there's a massive peak in this field. It creates a window where the walls between dimensions are at their thinnest.
So they were waiting for this peak.
August 12, 1983 was a peak. But go back exactly 20 years, you get 1963. Go back another 20.
You get August 12, 1943.
Correct. And August 12, 1943 is the alleged date of the infamous Philadelphia experiment.
The one with the USS Eldridge, the destroyer that supposedly turned invisible and teleported.
Right. The experiment that went horribly wrong. Sailors fused to the deck, men driven mad. The Montauk sources claim that the experiments they were running in '83, using all that power from the radar and the psychic in the chair, ripped a hole in space-time that latched directly onto that earlier event.
A hole connecting directly to 1943.
That's the claim, a 40-year time loop. The energy from Montauk in '83 hooked into the energy from the Eldridge in '43. Two massive disruptions on the same planetary biorhythm snapping together like magnets.
And this wasn't just like a radio signal. We're not talking about making a phone call to the past.
No. We're talking about a physical tunnel, a vortex. The sources describe personnel actually traveling through it.
Walking from 1983 to 1943.
And back. They claim they could send people, supplies, and even try to manipulate the outcome of the original experiment.
That creates so many paradoxes my head is spinning. If you go back and change something, doesn't that change the future you just left?
It's the grandfather paradox, yeah. But the source materials suggest something interesting. That they weren't changing history, they were fulfilling it. That they were always part of the 1943 event. The loop was closed.
It's fascinating, though. The source mentions time dilation.
It does. And that's where they try to ground this in some real physics. With these levels of electromagnetic energy, you are effectively distorting the fabric of space. Einstein predicted that gravity and acceleration affect time.
Right.
The Montauk theory posits that if you pump enough directed energy into one spot and you rotate that field, which the radar dish did, you can fold space-time like a piece of paper.
So Camp Hero wasn't just a mind control lab, it was a transit station.
To the past, and maybe the future. But the link to 1943 is the anchor. It holds the whole story together.
It's incredible to think about. A quiet park on Long Island, and underneath it, a doorway to World War II. But, as we know, you can't just punch holes in reality without something breaking.
There's always a price. The system was unstable, the psyches were breaking down, the energy levels were out of control.
Which brings us to the end. It didn't end with a budget cut. It ended in chaos.
Total chaos. Basically a mutiny.
This is the part that sounds the most like a movie finale. The beast from the id.
It's a direct reference to the classic sci-fi film Forbidden Planet, where a machine creates a monster from a man's subconscious.
And the sources claim this literally happened.
They do. You have a subject in the chair, likely traumatized, maybe even trying to sabotage the project. The source hints that some of them realized how evil it all was and decided to destroy it from the inside.
So the psychic, he visualized a monster.
Yes. Reached deep into his subconscious, the id, the primal animal part of the brain, and pulled out an image of a beast.
And because the chair works.
The chair did exactly what it was designed to do. It took that nightmare and gave it mass. It gave it form.
So a physical monster just appears on the base.
Yes. The description is of a huge, hairy creature. Not a hologram.
Yeah.
It was physical, solid, and incredibly destructive.
I can't even imagine the panic. You're underground in a secure military base, and suddenly there's a creature from a nightmare tearing through the halls.
Exactly. The security teams couldn't stop it. How could they? It was being constantly regenerated by the mind of the person in the chair. As long as the transmitter was on, the beast was real.
So how did they stop it?
They had to kill the feed, destroy the connection. The story goes that they tried to cut the power, but the system had become self-sustaining, maybe drawing energy from the time tunnel itself.
So they had to get physical.
They had to smash the equipment,
Yeah.
cut the power conduits to the radar, destroy the transmitters, and sever the link between the psychic and the machine.
Once the power was cut for good.
The beast faded away, returned to wherever it came from. But the damage was done. The base was in ruins, and they knew they had gone too far. They had opened a door they couldn't control.
And the source mentions a final solution for the base itself.
Concrete. The ultimate cover-up. You can burn documents, but you can't hide a massive underground complex ripped apart by, well, whatever that was. The source says they sealed the tunnels.
Just poured concrete down them?
That's the claim.
Yeah.
Filled the elevator shafts, the vents, the entrances. They entombed the entire project.
That's a haunting image. You walk through Camp Hero today and you're walking on top of a tomb.
A tomb of technology and trauma.
So let's recap. We have the SAGE radar, potentially a mass mind control weapon. We have the Montauk Chair, turning thoughts into things, powered by traumatized children. We have a time tunnel linking 1983 to 1943.
Right.
And the beast from the Ide, the nightmare that shut it all down.
It's an incredible collection of modern myths, but they're anchored to a very real place and very real documented government programs.
Right. MK Ultra is history, not theory.
Exactly. The Stargate project, remote viewing, that's real. The Montauk project takes all these known facts and stitches them together with this thread of absolute horror.
It really is the ultimate what if. What if they actually succeeded?
And if they did they really stop? Or did they just move the research to a new location?
That's the real question, isn't it? Which brings us to our final thought for you. If you go to Montauk Point today, you can have a picnic. You can walk the trails. But the concrete is still there. That radar dish is still standing, watching.
And you have to ask yourself, if the project was truly abandoned, why is security still so tight in some areas? What is actually buried beneath that surface?
Is the beast really gone? Or is it just waiting for someone to flip the switch back on?
That is the lingering question. When official records are missing, when history is vague, that's where we need to look the closest.
Absolutely.
Sometimes those holes are just bureaucratic errors.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Sometimes they're time tunnels.
they're time tunnels.
Stay curious, stay skeptical. See you in the next file. Goodbye.